Hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for dropping by, because today I have a very special treat for you. I have invited in brothers all the way from Australia, and we're going to talk about water fasting. It sounds very simple. It's going to be very to the point. If you've ever been interested in the topic, you don't want to miss this, because what we're talking about is hands-on experience. And no, this is not going to be for the advanced faster only. I mean, no matter where you are in your journey right now, as long as you're exploring, interested in health, if you're a health seeker like me, if you're a truth seeker, if you want to elevate your own connection to nature and feel more free in your choices, then I think this is for you. So I have with me Mr. Saxon and Sinclair Fisher-Gray. I myself am Hilda Larson. I'm a health and mindset coach. I am a speaker and author of 3 books. I am a detox specialist, and most of all, I'm a life enthusiast. So welcome, and welcome to you, Sinclair and Saxon. Let me just start by telling you who are watching a couple of words about these guys, because I mean, being from Australia, they've lived in the US and they've worked with health, you know, for quite some years. Saxon is the youngest, and he's a personal trainer. He's always been into sports, especially rugby. He was introduced to fasting by his brother. He's mostly vegan, and it doesn't seem to me like he could ever get out of that, you know, path again. So he's hooked. You can see it. Now, his brother Sinclair had a back injury 10 years ago, which stopped him from playing rugby. So they were both playing rugby, and this started his healing path. He started extensive fasting, and he has done 40 days of water only. I am unsure if Saxon has done the same, but I'll let them talk about that later. Now, we have a connection through Dr. Robert Morse, so you can trust that we're both, you know, into the natural, raw diet, detoxification mode when we're talking. Now he's a health and fitness worker, and especially a chef and a trainer, and he does some amazing work. Now, these guys are also involved in making a documentary, which is very exciting, and you'll hear more about that a little later. So that was the introduction. Again, welcome. And let me start by one general question that people might be interested in hearing about. It's, what's led you to fasting? Like, how did you end up here from where you were?
Yeah, so that really starts with myself, and it really all began for me around the age of 20, is about 12 years ago. And as you mentioned, I was playing rugby, and I was an aspiring rugby player, and never really had any real health problems before, but I was kind of like your average teenager, 20-year-old, that I drank alcohol, I partied, I didn't really think too much about what I put into my body. I felt, for the most part, I was pretty indestructible, and that all kind of just went out the window one day, and I was training at the gym and I hurt my back, and ended up getting a bulging disc. And that bulging disc just never got better. Like, I was just constantly in pain, and other things started showing up as well. I started to have skin issues. I started to have some hip pain. My body just started giving me all these little signs that, hey, like, something's wrong. And so I straight away went, all right, how do I fix this? And chiropractors, osteos, I looked at like detoxification sort of, but I was, rather than, it wasn't the Dr. Morse methods, it was actually paleo. I started eating a lot of meat, and tried to heal my body by eating, you know, grass-fed meats and pasture-raised eggs and all these kinds of things. Never got better. That was really like an 8-year journey. Until about the age of 28, when I actually, and by the way, like, just got worse and worse progressively. And by the age of 28, I actually found out about fasting through another mentor of mine named Tyler Tolman. And like, this is where it all changed for me, because for 8 years, I didn't really get any answers, didn't really have any improvement at all with my pain. And found out about fasting about 2 months after I found out. I did a 19-day water fast. Within 10 days of that, all my pain had gone away. My skin had completely cleared up. I, for the first time in my whole journey, I finally felt healing. And not just healing a little bit, but like deep levels of healing. And I saw plaque coming out and parasites coming out. And
wow.
I saw like what detox really meant. And, you know, like I hadn't really, I'd done intermittent fasting. I hadn't really done anything else. That was my first water fast ever. And I just thought, okay, this is it. This is the way, you know. So that was it. Then I came back from that. I told Saxon, I started talking about it, and I was telling him about the success I was having. And I just realized after my first fast that like one fast isn't going to completely undo 28 years of poor food and lifestyle or whatever. But I thought, okay, I want to do this again. And that kind of led me on the path of fasting. And then that opened it up to detox and Dr. Morse and fruit and everything else.
But let me ask you, did you jump in from a type of paleo diet into 19 days of water fast?
No, so I didn't go from that to the next day. Like when I found out about water fasting, it was literally the same day that I turned vegan. It was at a retreat in Bali with this man, Tyler Thompson. And from then on, I was pretty much preparing myself for the water fast. Like literally the moment I heard of it, I started planning for my water fast. And I was eating a plant-based diet, lots of raw foods, more fruit than usual, you know. So I'd already been through a bunch of healing crises. I had major like cold and flu for about 3-4 weeks. So my body had already started the process a little bit. And then before I went into the fast, I actually did 2 weeks of 23 hours of water fasting a day. And then I basically ate one meal a day for 2 weeks. So which I think had a massive.
Yeah. So you transitioned in.
Totally. And I actually think that really helped helped me have the success that I did in my fast.
Yeah. Because I see a lot of people fail from just not, and we can talk about that more, you know, the transition in and also breaking the fast, which, you know, it can be crucial to success or not, just breaking it. Like, because I did a 20-day water fast myself. Yeah. Without this knowledge.
Right.
Yeah. Not a good experience.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. Okay. Back to you.
So yeah, that's where we got to. I sort of discovered fasting, and then I realized that I needed to do more. And then I kind of came to Saxon. We started talking about doing a fast together, and that led us into the next one.
Yeah. So I mean, Sinclair, obviously, he went on his journey with the paleo and keto, and you know, I was on the sidelines watching him do all this because, you know, we obviously grew up together, we lived together, we even shared a room together for 19 years. So, you know, we're super close. Yeah. I watched the journey that he went on and how hard it was for him to lose his rugby career and constantly, you know, be falling at these hurdles of trying to heal himself. So he discovered fasting, he discovered plant-based eating, and kind of came to me and was like, hey man, like, I think this is it. I think I've had massive success with this. Like, I'm thinking about doing a bigger fast. Do you want to join me? And at first I was like, because he talked about doing 40 days on just water. And I was like, man, I haven't done any fasting before. You want me to jump straight into 40 days? So then we started talking about, you know, potentially doing 20 days on juice, 20 days on water, like followed by 20 days on juice. Yeah. And eventually I agreed to it. I was like, all right, I'm in. Sounds like, you know, a hell of a journey. So I signed up for it, and I started playing around with my own ones. I started doing like a little bit of like 24 hours, and then pushed that out to 3 days, and then finally pushed it out to 5 days before the big one. And just to familiarize myself with it, just to see how it felt. And like every time I did a fast and I pushed it a little bit longer, I felt really good.
Did you start pushing the water fasting first, or did you start doing smaller juice fast first?
So I did a 3-day water fast, and then I did a 7-day juice fast. And then after that, I did a 5-day water fast, all in the space of probably about 5 months. You know, I'd give myself obviously, you know, a month or two in between just to kind of wrap my head around what I was going to do next and you know, prepare for that properly. And then, yeah, so familiarize myself with the idea of going without food for an extended period. And then a few months later, we went 20 days on water and then 20 days on juice.
Yeah. This is amazing. Let me just clarify it for all the people that are watching too. Like a juice fast means, well, fasting just means restraining from, like keeping away from. That's like the word fasting just means you're not doing. Yeah. So when we're talking about a juice fasting, what we're talking about is you're ingesting juices only. No, you're not ingesting capsules. No, you're not ingesting a little bit of this or a little bit of that. No, juices only. No pulp, strained juice only. And water fast, water only. Not your herbs, not. It means only. And I think a lot of people have a lot of understanding because they're calling different programs fasting this, fasting that. And it's kind of, this ain't fasting. Fasting has a very particular concept behind it. And the key is in what you're not doing. So anything you want to add, you can do it later. Anything you want benefits from, do it later. But fasting, it's the complete opposite.
I've met people who talk about how they've done a 10-day water fast, but then when you actually ask about the details, they've been eating meals at nighttime, it's more intermittent fasting than anything, but then they just refer to it as a 10-day water fast, which obviously is very confusing when you've got people, like us and yourself who have actually gone 10, 20 days on literally nothing but water.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Definitely
so just to have that clarified, we're talking about water only, and we're talking about juices only. Okay, so you prepared for this. So we're talking about a 20-day juice or water followed by juice, or juice followed by water?
Yeah, it was water and then juice.
And then juice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then what happened?
So where did we get up to?
The philosophy that we had behind having water then juice was the idea that we were in that water fast, we were going to strip back all the layers, both internally, emotionally, physically and emotionally. And then at the end of the 20 days on water, we were then going to rebuild our body by drinking just juice. So still allowing our bodies to be in a detox, still allowing it to really be removing lots of waste and also allowing in that 20 days, the body to slowly start to wake back up. Because obviously it's been asleep for 20 days, the digestive system and, lots of other things. And in that 20 days on juice, the philosophy that we adopted was that we're going to slowly let it just kind of familiarize itself with, having to take in outside nutrition even at the end of the 20 days, when we started introducing food, it was like a massive shock to the system. So the body really takes a long time to wake up when it's been, given that long a rest.
Yeah. And I think it's a big topic for a lot of people that don't understand the importance of the refeeding phase. And I think it was genius to do the juices after the water like that, because you were skipping a lot of the, hassles that comes from refeeding. And like you said, what you're then refeeding is like the highest, most pure nutritional vibration, and bypassing digestion, as far as the intestinal tract, like being absorbed in a completely different way. But I do see people really, really, really hurt themselves through refeeding. So I think that needs to be a big message out there that like I myself went from a water fast and I went to eating, although I was raw, although I wasn't high fruit back then, but I had been raw for years. I just, my body went into complete shock. I went into like a full body rash. I was sick as a dog for a month after, just because I abruptly stopped this really deep cleanse at 20 days. So not to be recommended. Now, I wouldn't recommend anyone go do 20 days, from not having fasted. Of course, you do 1 day, you do 3 days. I remember back in the day, nobody would ever even talk about, in fear of someone following them, they would not even talk about fast longer than 3 days, because that's why you had the fasting clinics, because you need supervision. Now, I don't necessarily agree that you need a fasting clinic, but obviously you need to reach out to someone knowledgeable if you haven't studied yourself. And I think we need to be able to take back our power too. We can't take the power away from people saying you can't do this, you can't do anything on your own. You need an authority. I mean, what's that crap about, right?
Like I think we all have this innate ability to do this, to go and to water fast, but it's such a big deal, and that's what we're talking about, isn't it? It's like, if you're going to go and do something like this, understand that it is one of the most intense experiences that you'll probably you've ever had, and there's a really great way and a right way to do it. And if you do it that way, you'll have a much smoother experience. You'll heal much better. the whole thing is just going to be so much better for you. And if you do it the wrong way, you know, you're missing out. You're not only missing out on that healing, but you're also potentially putting yourself in a little bit of harm. So, and some danger. So having someone guide you through it is very, very important. And we actually, this is something that we're creating at the moment is a fasting guide for people at home where they can actually speak with us just like this. And we help them with the preparation, the fast, the breaking of it. So yeah, like it's, as you know, like it's such
and that's a great part of it, because that's what we're doing, right? We're taking our own experience, making it accessible for people at home to empower themselves. But I always encourage people to do their research, to do their reading, to experiment, and also get guidance. But never think that guidance, because a lot of people are saying that, oh, I can't do that, or I can't do that. It's like, that's called self-sabotage. You know, you can always do better. You can always try. From where you're at, there's always a solution. Now, from your experience, what was the benefits that you could see? Like, could you see a tip? Have you seen patterns in the water fasting? Like what you typically see after how long a fast, you know, and what people can expect from a longer fast? That would be interesting to know.
Yeah, there's definitely patterns, you know, that certainly, it's not like, hey, this is what happens and this is what you'll experience. We'll say first up, your experience will be different every time, and your experience will always be different from someone else's. It's very dependent on the genetic makeup of your body, the current physical condition of your body, your emotional condition. Like, there's so many variables that will determine how your fast plays out. But what we could say, I'd say in the first 3 days, you're going to probably feel at some point in those 3 days a little bit unwell, a little bit unpleasant, because your body's obviously going to be adapting to the new process of not eating, and it's going to have to adapt to a new energy source. And that can often be a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit unpleasant. But then what we've found after that is, say, from day 4 onwards, your body has started to adapt to the new one. It's like, you know, burning fat storage as its energy source. And because it's adapted to that, it's become a little bit more comfortable. But then
let's just clarify just 1 second there. Is that's what people refer to as ketosis?
Yes.
Yeah. So a lot of the paleo people going towards ketosis, they will recognize what you're talking about. Or if they don't, then this is what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Energy source. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the difference is, what Saxon's saying is that the fasting ketosis and paleo ketosis is that ketosis, when you fast, is totally different. It's a detoxifying process. Whereas when you go through paleo ketosis and you start eating a high fat diet, there's actually more of a retox happening than a detox. So just to clarify that, one's healing, the other is not, you know.
Beautiful. Yeah.
But yeah, so what we noticed from probably day 4 or 5 onwards is that for Cinco and I anyway, it was very much a roller coaster ride. We'd often be on alternating days of feeling really good, being really clear-minded, like just full of energy, whereas the other one would just all of a sudden be down in the dumps, feeling pretty shitty. And it was preceded by, when you were feeling shitty, it was often succeeded by a big removal of waste the next day. Like, because we were getting colonics or enemas, and the day after feeling a bit unwell and unpleasant, we would see a massive removal of waste, whether it be mucoid plaque, whether it be mucus, whether it would be bile, parasites, whatever it was. It was often the day after where we felt crap. And it was, again, because our body is just like, you know, it's removing all this. It's removing it from the colon walls, from the cells in the body, and it's just flushing it all out, which means your body has to deal with it. It has to process it. So that was definitely one experience that we had that I think most people can expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, it's going to be so different for everyone because everyone has a different makeup. Now, there is one thing that comes up with fasting and the individual makeup or the situation that you're in, because biologically, you know, let's realize, when you put us on a table and you open us up, we're exactly the same inside. There's not going to be that much different. You know, some people might miss a kidney or something, but we're literally the same. So let's forget about all being so different. We're different through our weaknesses. We're different through our emotional setting, our life, our accidents, our traumas, you know, but we could just put that into one bulk and say, we're different through our weaknesses, not through not from nature or creation. We're not different. We're the same. We're supposed to have the same diet. We're supposed to, we'll adapt, you know. But the thing is, when you have weak adrenals, I don't know if you have something to say about that, but to me, weak adrenals can be like a really shitty thing when you really want to push your body into anything. But we have, because, I mean, we have to realize, I mean, even fasting, it is a push. It's a strain. It's, you know, it's extra, it's deep work. So it's not something that the body does lightly, even though it welcomes it. It's still going to take capacity. You know, it's going to take life fire. You need to have that force within you to be able to safely go through it. What do you think? Have you seen, did you notice anything with your own adrenals or?
Definitely, yeah. So one of my biggest weaknesses in my eyes that I've picked up on is my adrenal glands, and genetically. So, and then if you put on top of that all of the recreational drugs and the alcohol and the partying and the food and everything. So that was one of my big weaknesses. And it was more so, I found when I started to go for a really long fast, like when I started to go beyond 20 days, that's when I felt things really start, like my body really felt it. And I just was I was so headstrong about getting to 40 days that I just pushed through and I got there. But I could actually feel like my nervous system was really starting to struggle and my energy was really starting to drop. And yeah, like in hindsight, I look back and I think, well, maybe I probably overdid it. You know, like I probably actually weakened my nervous system a little bit by over fasting.
Yeah.
And
that's where your experience becomes golden.
Exactly.
Because without having that weakness, without stretching that far, without going in there, there's no story to tell. There's no experience.
Yeah.
There's no advice.
For sure. So
that's why people can hear what you're saying, but they can't always follow your lead. And for me too, I do things and people say, if people ask me, how long do you do this? My answer would be, let's see how long you should do this.
Exactly.
Because it can be dangerous to just put out like, oh, this is what I do.
Yeah.
You know, I just do juices for 90 days. That's what I do. And then somebody will just jump right in and try to do the same thing. Not a good idea.
Yeah. And also like because other people come to me and say, oh, I've watched your video about your 40-day water fast and I want to do a 40-day water fast. Like, will you coach me? I'm like, all right, well, let's just pump the brakes. Like, do you actually, why do you want to do it, firstly? And let's have a look at your eyes. Let's check out your nervous system. Let's check your body out and see, would you actually do well in this? Because there's so many other options. Yeah. And
like I can lead you when you're ready.
Let's build you up for that.
Yeah.
I had someone call me and say, hey, I want you to coach me on a 40-day water fast. I said, all right, no worries. That's a massive, massive deal. Let's build you up and get your body ready. She goes, I'm already on day 2. I was like, okay. So she only ended up doing 20 days because I coached her for 20 days and just said, all right, like, I feel like this is it. I feel like you're good now. I feel like if you go beyond this, this is going to start to become detrimental. And she had an amazing experience, but I think if she kept going, it would have hurt her for sure.
Yeah. I think it's a great message, you know, not to put any fear out there, but it is a good message. You are putting yourself into a situation which is unexplored for your body, and you are the one responsible for what you put yourself into. So you need to really be experienced, or you need to have that support. I just can't stress that enough in this conversation.
I think it's important to say, it's like, and fasting for that long is not the only way to heal. You know, and fasting is not necessarily the only way to heal. You know, there's plenty of other ways to achieve your goal that are more applicable to your lifestyle, to your current state, physical condition.
And just way easier.
Yeah, exactly.
Some way easier ways.
I mean, there are people obviously who are in a rush, and then maybe whose circumstances are a little bit more dire. Yeah. Maybe you need to speed things along, but for those who have time and patience, make it easier for yourself.
And again, it depends on the condition. You know, sometimes you have something really long-term, degenerative, going on, chronic, and you need to just keep on pushing and pushing until you get to it. But other people, they might not need to go there at all. You know, they can lighten up their diet and go into the mindset, because We have to, has being fasters, we all know what the mindset is, how everything we think and everything we feel controls our biological body. So, and that's another thing I wanted to ask you, especially when you're talking about the very long fasts. Did you struggle with fears? Did you struggle with, fear of lack, fear of undernourishment, fear of dying, fear that you were doing too much? How was that?
I wouldn't say I might.
Talking about the 40-day fast.
Oh, sorry, my apologies.
Yeah, you're talking about the 40-day water fast, right?
Yeah, whenever you experienced it. So it could be either way. If he felt it at 20, you felt it at 40, but in general, because people are experiencing a lot of fear,
Sure.
Especially about lack of nutrition. I mean, that they're going to die because they're not eating, literally. Stop.
I wouldn't say that I personally had any fears of my well-being during the fast or my physical well-being. At no point did I think, oh no, I need to break this, or I'm not feeling good enough to continue. Like, my energy levels never got to a point where I thought, okay, I can't continue. Like, I still, it got very challenging at times, definitely, but I still always thought I'm going to be able to continue this.
Yeah.
I would say mentally, the thing that was most surprising to me was the kind of the emotional baggage that I've carried with me through my life came right to the surface.
Yes.
And that's the fear. If I'm using the word fear, I'm talking about the fear of insecurity, the fear of not being good enough, and all the stuff that, the negative things that people tell themselves throughout their life, the reasons that they give themselves to not chase their dreams or whatever it might be. They're the things you deal with. They're the things you have to come to blows with and really embrace and acknowledge.
And that can be a tricky part of any fast or change in diet. I call it a self-sabotage phase. Like, a lot of people fall off and they have a perfectly sane, good, reasonable reason in their head, sabotaging because they're fearing what the emotional detox is bringing up. So they're fearing the change or to face their inner programming, the false beliefs. And we all have them, believe me. I mean, in our heads, I don't think we were ever good enough. None of us. Why? Because we live in this society. How is it possible almost to feel good enough? This is something we need to work for. We need to set ourselves free to get there, because we're programmed to not be there,
Yeah, the emotional detox is very real, and something that I personally didn't have any experience with and wasn't prepared for at all. So that was quite challenging, but very rewarding for me.
Yeah. So then people can learn. So people can learn that not only do they need to be physically prepared, as far as knowing what symptoms can come up, and they need to transition safely into a longer fast. They need to know what a fast is. They need to be educated, because, if you're educated, it's easier to own the whole process. And then also you need to know about emotional detox. That's what you're saying, that came up to you real, almost more of a so-called struggle than the physical, would you say?
On par, I would say on par.
Yeah.
Physically, definitely had its challenges. But I think not being prepared for the emotional element definitely made it more challenging, because there's no way to prepare. I certainly couldn't know what was going to come up, things from my childhood, things that these negative voices that have, been with me throughout my life were just suddenly right there staring me in the face, and then I had to deal with that and move past it. And
yeah. And did you feel like there was a transformation happen? Could you sense after the process that something in your life had changed, something in your awareness had changed?
There was a real sense of acceptance at the end of it, with myself and who I am and what I want to be and the life that I want to live. And
it's definitely it's a real character builder, I think, because confidence is something that we all it's a bit of a tug of war that we have going with it throughout our lives, and when you go through an experience like fasting for a prolonged period, that tug of war becomes really real throughout it. And it's like Sax is talking about, a lot of your own self-doubt and fears and and feelings of lack and all these things come up, and you have nothing to nothing to prevent you from actually dealing with it. You know what I mean? You have to really face up with it all.
You're stripped naked, like you're literally stripped naked. That's what you can also, I'm sure you experience the same. You will easily detect how you use food. If you use food for social, if you use it emotional, if you use it when you're sad, when you're happy, when you feel lonely, when you're, frustrated, because we all have to some extent unhealthy relationship to food, and then all of a sudden you don't have that anymore. You're naked. You can't numb yourself.
My biggest experience was probably more on my 40-day fast, where the last 10 days it was a pretty cruisy fast, if I'm honest. Up until the 30th day, I feel like it was a pretty physical experience. And I was kind of cruising through it. And then that last 10 days was just like, I ended up being joined by a bunch of other guys, and we fasted together. And we were having a lot of conversation around, some vulnerable topics. And that was where all my stuff came up. And then I just, for the last 10 days, was like just an emotional wreck. Every time I spoke to Saxon we Skyped, and I was just like bawling my eyes out. I just felt like everything had come up to the surface, because my body was just so stripped, and then everything was just coming up. And it was a really, it was actually one of my best experiences with fasting, because it was the most I've ever really felt. Like I was really feeling like a connection with myself. I felt really vulnerable, but really open to like say things and share and cry and whatever. And like, as a man, especially, like most men go through their whole life never experiencing that, because we're so taught to be strong and to not show weakness and just to man up and all that kind of stuff. So that was a really powerful experience for me. And like I think one of the best things about fasting.
So did you use the word weakness also? Did you feel like you were then embracing, more of you, even what you perceived as weakness? Because a lot of, in the society, we see emotional responses as weaknesses, meaning, if you're crying or showing but it's the feminine side, of course, that's been suppressed, within us. So I can see, luckily, a lot of, younger men, like things are changing though. I mean, we went through a pretty dark period on this earth where everything was closed down. And even women were trying to shut down their femininity to become more man-like, masculine, to not have to feel, because it was looked at as a weakness. So have you brought that with you? Has it been like, has it stopped?
Yeah, definitely. Like I was lucky enough to be with a bunch of guys, conscious men who were also fasting, and like if anything, it made me feel stronger. It made me feel free. Like I felt like I could express myself in any way, and I didn't feel like I was holding on to this baggage, this like emotional baggage. And, look, to be honest, like when you break a fast and you go back to your normal life, it's very easy just to kind of fall back into the swing of things and to kind of go back to your old self. But no matter what you do, you're never going to be exactly like you were. When you fast and you go through a massive process like that, you're never going to be the same. Your perspective is going to change around food, around your life, around your purpose. So many things will change, but they do you do sort of fall back into your old habits a little bit. But it's that whole pendulum swing, right? It's like it never swings back as far as where you were. You're always progressing in some way.
So what's the deepest, crazy, crappiest, shitty thing that you experienced on a fast? Like what was the most gross thing that either came out of you, or what was the experience that you really felt that, oh my God, I'm really getting into this? Either I laid in bed and I cried for 2 days, or something came out, nobody could use the bathroom for 3 days because it smelled like egg. And, did you have like really deep releases on fasting?
Yeah, definitely. Like, so I'll just tell you my story, because this was my first fast. So I'd never done a colonic before. I'd done a few enemas and stuff, but never done a colonic. And I was 2 weeks in. Well, actually, no. So I was 10 days into my fast, and I was struggling so badly that I was like, all right, I'm breaking this thing. I would have broken it, but it was 9 o'clock at night. Everything was closed. All I had in my apartment was salt. So I made sure I was like, I'm not breaking this thing. I'm not having temptation. So I was like, tomorrow morning, I'm going down to the grocery store and I'm breaking this thing because I'm struggling. But I woke up in the morning. I was like, all right, I'm just going to do an enema, see if I feel a bit better. I did an enema and I looked in the toilet bowl and it was full of parasites. And I was like, whoa, I'd never seen a parasite before. I was like, what the hell is that? But then I was like, hang on. I was like, I feel amazing. I felt so much, probably the best I'd felt in the whole fast. And I was like, I'm just going to keep going. Like, I feel really good. And I did. And then on day 15, I went and got my first colonic ever. And wow, like that was basically from like start to finish. If you've ever done a colonic, you know, I'm sure you've done loads. Yeah. The tube is just, see all of it come out. It was just black the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah. So mucoid plaque just pouring out.
That's what I want to hear about, because so many people, they're getting the dark out, but they're putting in the psyllium husk and the, you know, all of that. And it's a combination coming out. I mean, all of that gluey stuff needs to come out too. What I need, you know, what we want to see is that when it comes out on a fast, on a water fast. Beautiful. How about you, Saxon?
I would say for me, the same experience was like, you know, we, from about 10 days onwards in our 20-day fast that we did, the water fast, we started getting colonics. And I'd never had one before. I'd done a few enemas and you know, had some results during the fast. But again, enemas, like, they kind of scratch the surface a little bit, whereas a colonic is a little bit more, it's a bit more thorough. And yeah, same thing. And seeing in that tube, you're just seeing all these colors. You're seeing red, yellow, orange. You know, the lady,
like, what did you eat yesterday? Like,
and it's like, the thing is, haven't eaten. For me, I remember when I was on day 17, probably the biggest colonic I had. I haven't eaten anything for 17 days. Theoretically, there shouldn't be anything coming out of me, you know? And I've just got this red, orange. She's like, that's from your liver. That's all like, you know, mucus there. That's parasite. She's like, that's a hookworm. That's a fluke worm. She's like, that's mucoid plaque. She's like, that's old fecal matter from like, who knows how long ago. I'm just sitting there going, how the hell is any of this still inside of me? You know what I mean? And again, that
makes you a believer, doesn't it? It really makes you a believer.
I was 26 at the time with no real injuries or health concerns. So it's like, you know, that was one of the big reasons I wanted to do this, because I was like, all right, Sinclair's got a lot of these injuries. He's got a real reason and like a purpose to do this. What can I get out of it? What can I achieve? And I'm sitting there seemingly healthy, watching all this crap come out of me. I'm like, holy shit, man. Like, who knows what's inside most people? Like, if that's inside of me, a pretty healthy guy, like, you know, that's inside of everyone almost, you know, you'd like to think. So
it's an invaluable experience. I can remember having a friend that I connected with on Facebook years ago, and she went on a 30-day water fast. And she contacted me after 20 days, said, you won't believe what happened, Hilda. She got stoned, shit-faced stoned. She had released cocaine she hadn't been touching anything for 15 years.
Wow.
And they reckon it was released from a pocket in her intestinal tract.
Wow.
So she actually felt the effects of the drugs.
She was completely stoned.
Oh, wow.
You know what? I've had a few similar experiences actually. And one of them was on the juice fast with Sax after. We were probably on like day 15 or something of the juice fast. And all of a sudden I was like, hey, did you feel a bit weird? And he's just like, fine. I'm like, yeah, me too. But my brain, my body felt like I felt like I was on acid. Like it was the weirdest.
Turn up the music. Where's the party?
It was really strange. And I think, you know, I'd have like taken recreational drugs in the past. So maybe it could have been like ecstasy, acid, something that like, but I didn't enjoy it this time. Like this didn't feel good. I didn't like it.
Now's probably a good time to admit I actually just spiked his drink. I spiked his juice the same day. He doesn't know that yet.
Thanks.
But the message is this: the body has an enormous capacity to encapsulate, to protect us, and to hold on to stuff. So even though we're not necessarily feeling it, we could be hosting a lot of toxins, you know, and again, that's how different we are from what we have done, from what our mothers have done, right? We've been in her womb, you know, shared the same lymphatic system. So when you go through fasting, the shit can hit the fan, you know, in a way that you might not be ready for if you don't go slow and go for the experience, you know.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone that has never fasted but want to better their health through because they already have symptoms? So say, for example, there is a person who feels tired, in pain, you know, have several smaller issues, and they know they need to dig in and detoxify. What would you say to them? Like, how could they benefit, and how would you have them start out this journey? And then after that, we'll also, you know, let you talk a little about your documentary, and I will also, and you can also tell them about your fasting program that you're making, so that people know how to find you.
Yeah, so for someone who's looking to heal their body and they want to utilize fasting, or they're not really sure where to start, yeah, I would say firstly, fasting is an amazing tool, and it's something that we should all consider using, but also consider maybe that it might be some time before you're ready to do a fast of 10 days or more. But definitely, if it's something that you just really want to start experimenting with, then just even starting with like 24 hours, you know, a day's fast. Most people can get through a day pretty comfortably if they stay hydrated, if they maybe eat like fruit for a day or two beforehand, and do a little bit of hydrating and cleaning. See how 24 hours feels, and then build yourself up from there and do 48 hours, 72 hours. And then once you break that 72-hour mark, I feel like that's when you're really in the kind of depths of fasting, and your body's in ketosis, and your experience can actually start to get a lot easier and smoother. It's the first 3 days that can be a bit tricky.
So it's that transition that you're also experiencing. Transition. That's when most people
fail. Like most people go, oh, it's too hard in the first 3 days, and I can't do it, and I got a headache. And then there's all these tools that we can use, like enemas and sunshine and hydration and these things
breathing.
That will help breathing.
I think, a lot of people mistake the symptoms of the fast, headaches, nausea, maybe diarrhea. They mistake that as like a reason not to do that. You know, they mistake these symptoms as the problem, and they go, "Oh no, I got
afraid."
Because there's a lack of understanding of like what these things actually mean. Just for anyone listening to this, like if you're vomiting and if you're shitting, or if you're like whatever means getting rid of things out of your body, that's a good thing. You are removing the very things that you are causing you the issues. So encourage that. The fasting is doing its job.
And that's a great topic, you know, to have like a little pause on the symptoms and how we see the symptoms. Now we need to put in that, you know, the disclaimer that we're not doctors, and we're absolutely not giving medical advice, and we're not telling anyone to push through anything. We have to remember they can have conditions that we have no idea, you know. So this is not like a general, but in society we have been taught that symptoms are sickness. So even when you have a fever, so your attention goes towards taking away the fever. That's why Tylenol exists, you know, or all these drugs, and not realizing that the fever is the healing. The mucus is the healing. The nausea is the healing. The discharge is the healing. It's the healing phase. That's what the healing phase looks like.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, if you want to heal your body, then there's going to be a level of detox and a level of discomfort. And how much discomfort you go through is really going to depend on how much your body's holding on to, and how deep you go. You know, there's the fastest way, which is water fasting, and that is the hardest way. And then there's the slowest way, which is raw foods and fruit, and then there's all these little steps in between that. So, you know, we are always in control of how fast we go, and then that's why, to kind of go back to your other question, it's like exploring all of them is the answer. Really, it's not just looking at fasting like fasting is the answer. Because fasting is great, but then you're going to have to eat someday. Well, then what are you going to eat when you go back to food? And it's like, because that's either going to continue healing you or it's going to put you back where you started.
Yeah.
So you really got to explore it all to have success in the long term.
There's also just talking to anyone who might be wanting to explore going on a 2, 3, 4, however long day fast. There's something Sinclair and I consider to be really important, and that's your why. Why you want to do this, you know, whether it be to heal a condition, whether it be to fix a mental, you know, way of thinking. You need to, before you start this, sit down and spend time on why you want to do this, and have that rock solid in the front of your mind for any time that things get tough or they get challenging. Your why is sitting right there, reminding you why you're doing it and why you need to push past this feeling of discomfort and get you know, to finish what you started and get to the point you want to be at.
And you need to let go of the expectations of what the process should look like.
Exactly.
Because, you know, as people, we tend to compare ourselves to others. We have ideas of how far we should get, on how long, and when things should happen, and how it should happen. And for a lot of us, this can be even stronger through education. The more you know, the more fixed you are on what it should look like. So we really also need to step back and just, before we start, even say, I'm going to allow the process. I'm going to let go of every expectation. I'm not even going to look at the outcome. I've decided to do this, and I'm just going to do it and let whatever happens, happen.
Yeah, totally. That was the big difference between the first time I ever did it, where I had very little, I'd never experienced it before. So I just fully surrendered and had an amazing experience. And then the second time I tried to get really intellectual about it, and like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to perfect it, you know? And and to be honest, like this, my first fast was amazing, really healing. My second and third one, very different experiences, because I was trying to be too clever about it and trying to be too academic, and we're also trying to make a film while
trying
we
to adhere to a schedule. And like, you know, don't make a schedule while you're fasting, you know? If you can help it, you know, and that's another thing we'd say. If you're going to do an extended fast of 3+ days, take time out of your schedule to do it. Don't try and do it while you're working a busy job or a really stressful job, because that's just going to place unneeded stress in the body and take away a lot of the benefits that you might get if you were to go actually away for a weekend or take time out of your day or your life to do it.
Not only that, but you're also putting the intention out there that you're actually choosing yourself. You're not putting your health as the third or fourth priority in your life. You're putting it as a priority number one. And we have not been taught that that's even okay to put ourselves first. You know, we haven't been taught that we need to be our best, to be the best father or brother or son or, you know, whatever it is. And that's what this is ultimately all about, right? Getting back to ourselves and building our strengths so that we can be the best that we are and therefore be the best for others. But before we close, let's go to the refeeding also, because I did a year ago, I ended a 3-month, around 90 days of juice fasting. Now, this was not something that I planned. I just started juicing and I thought maybe I'll juice for a week, and then, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So I just went with it because there was something going on in my digestive system that just went really deep. And I just felt, okay, I'll roll with it. I'll just roll with it. So no expectations. What I didn't expect was to drive it so deep. That was my situation, right? It's not something you can teach beforehand or say that, oh, you've been raw for 12 years or you've been for 6-7 years, you know, this should, like, there can't be any expectations because we have no idea what the crap is going on with our bodies. It could be this life, past life, emotional. I mean, it could be so much stuff. And that's another thing. It's important that people understand. It's not that you get up the ladder and then you get there. Like, there's no end station to this. You know, this is an ongoing journey, like a forever journey, wherever you want to take it. But long story short, I ended it in my way, which was, of course, to go to fruit. And in trying to refeed, you know, a little quick because I had lost a lot of weight, I started breaking out, swelling up. I was in such a deep process that even eating fruit was too much for my body. And the deepness of the release that I was in with my liver, there was candida coming. I had like a full body rash. You won't believe it. I was like covered in red and blue. And it went on for months. My hair fell off. What else happened? Nausea. I was throwing up. It literally felt like everything was just almost shutting down. Like my body was really struggling getting back after that long a time, you know, when you just leave the digestive system down. So even now, I'm in awe at the respect that we need to have for refeeding, depending on the person. So now I'm like, well, have a teaspoon of mango pudding, and then wait 2 hours and see. You know, it's like really go slow with the refeeding. Yeah, and that can actually happen from juice fasting, not only water fasting.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of a story like that after a long juice fast. And I know, like in our experience, we've had loads of that with water. Yeah. Like when I did my 40 days, and I broke it with watermelon. I broke it with coconut, fresh coconut, and then I did juice for about 3 days.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then I saw after about 3 days, I was doing a bit of grape juice, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try and eat some grapes. So it was probably like day 5, and even on day 5, I had a grape. I could only eat about 1 grape every 5 minutes, because if I had any more, immediately I just started to feel it in my digestive system, and I could probably only eat like maybe 10 in a meal, and that lasted for days and days. And like the refeeding after my 40 days was like at least a 3-month process. You know, it was, and it wasn't perfect. Like it was, you know, I tried to be as good as I could, but things I ate, like I would eat some cooked foods, or I'd eat some too much fruit or whatever, and it was really sensitive, you know. So the refeeding it's in a lot of ways, it's harder than the fast itself.
It is, because it's more of a trial and error type of thing. Like it's very hard to guide it directly, except know when to hold them and know when to fold them, you know, and maybe get support from someone that has experienced it. But like with me, this was not necessarily that my digestive system wouldn't handle it back. It was just that I had gone through a very deep emotional hit and cleanse in that deep fast, something that happened that was not foreseen. And it showed me a lot of aspects of what the body can really do, you know, when you're going through deep releases, being it emotional or physical. So we're dealing with, and we have to remember, I've been like really sick, like sick. So, I mean, in no comparison. I mean, I was like dead, should have been dead long time ago. So I'm also speaking to a lot of, you know, the people watching that have been diagnosed maybe autoimmune years ago, been on drugs years, you know, they're trying to turn everything around. And there's a lot of crap behind every corner. There's more crap. So we just need to really go slow with that. I wanted to just point that out again. Yeah. We need to go slow with that.
Definitely something Sinclair and I realized was you should plan to break your fast as thoroughly, if not even more thoroughly, on how you as to how you prepare for your fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely prepare to break it. And how did you break it, Saxon, when you went on after the 20?
So after we finished the 2020, the juice fast, Sinclair and I both had mango as like just some small cut up mango. As what we broke it with. And then for the first few days, we were pretty good. We ate predominantly just fruits. But honestly, because we didn't prepare as well as what we should have, the temptation and the desire to eat, you know, all these delicious foods that I'd been dreaming and you know, like salivating about throughout the entire fast got the better of me. And, you know, suddenly 3-4 days later, I'm eating like nut butters and like delicious granola and paying for it. Like my stomach has just exploded out into, you know, out in front of me like this, and it's stiff and it's sore and I can't sleep properly because it's so sore. Like, you know, again, they're lessons you have to kind of learn in order to be able to give people advice.
And have you also learned, like I have learned, that some lessons you have to learn by experience? Not all lessons you learn through reading or people teaching you. Something we just fall on our face. It's a part of our learning.
Totally. Yeah, they're the most valuable ones, I find. Like when I can speak from experience, that's when I feel like I can really share. Like, because anyone can just read the same book that I read, but if I can actually talk from experience, there's a deeper level of truth, and people, it just resonates much more with people.
And it's much more authentic. And people are people, and everyone is people. And when people are watching you, and Saxon says, I tell them, you know, I went to the nut butter. A lot of people can relate to that, and it makes, you know, it makes it relatable, and it makes it so much more true, because we're people. And to be honest, I mean, there's more to life than food, right? And yeah, I could ask you that question. Do you believe that you could benefit from water fasting without being a raw foodist?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think anyone can benefit from water fasting. I think, I just think people who do eat a lot of animal products and who don't eat a very good diet, like those are the ones that need to put way more conscious effort into preparing for it. You know, because you can do a lot of harm. You go in with meat putrefying and just a belly full of food that you just don't want to have in a water fast. Yeah.
So maybe the first step would then be to go towards a vegan, mucus-less diet.
Yeah.
Would you say? Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. We were already both plant-based by the time we started to prepare, but like we narrowed it down to like pretty much fruit for like the last week before we did it. Just, you know, obviously we wanted to clean out our digestive system, our colon, as much as possible, make it as streamlined as possible, so that when the fast actually began, we were already like, you know, we had a head start, and we weren't going to be suffering from, you know, these recently eaten food that just wasn't being moved along, and it was going to like cause us lots of discomfort and pain and stuff like that. So
But obviously, if you're really struggling with your health and you're eating a lot of cooked and animal foods, a lot of foods that are going to putrefy in your body, you know, highly acidic, obviously, maybe water fasting isn't the first thing we would recommend. You know, we'd probably recommend you do something with your diet. You know,
do a few steps to go through before you get to the water fast.
There are a couple of other ideas out there. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. Well, it was an honor to talk to you. Is there anything you feel that you want to share that's important that we hear about, especially water fasting?
Well, we could talk about the documentary you mentioned. You touched on it before.
Yes, I absolutely want to get to that. Let's go to the documentary. This is so exciting.
Yeah. So it's essentially it follows Sinclair's and my journey throughout the 2020 fast, the water fast and the juice fast, all the preparation, all the fasting journey itself, and then how we broke it. And we also, like, you know, the exciting part is that we've managed to speak to all of our mentors throughout the process, get all this valuable, like, you know, really, really incredible information from all of them about fasting, about the history of fasting, the benefits. And then also, you know, we've managed to speak to all these people who have healed, who have testimonials from seemingly, you know, irreversible diseases and conditions, who through fasting and through this lifestyle have managed to reverse them completely.
This is like hepatitis, is it B? C. Oh, I always get that wrong. Hepatitis C, a young girl who was 15 and she fasted for 20 days and healed from Lyme. She actually did 2 fasts in 2 years, both 20 days. And then
stage 4
colon cancer. And so, we've got some amazing stories and testimonies of people who have done this. And it's just going to be I think there's films out there at the moment. There's one called Fasting, and there's some other films that are great, but they're really scientific. Ours is going to be a little bit more of a up close and personal look at what fasting actually looks like, the highs, the lows, the physical, the emotional, and just a relatable kind of movie that hopefully entertains, makes you laugh, makes you cry, and takes you on a journey of hope. Like, it's a journey of like, yes, you can heal no matter what you're dealing with. And it's not just about water fasting. It's about detoxification, and it's about really the body's ability, the ability we will all have as human beings, we were born with, to heal ourselves without pharmaceuticals, without, you know, intervention. Like, we have the ability, and it's just about tapping into that.
All we need to do is look to nature and to see what the animals are doing.
Exactly.
You know. So when is this? When will it be out? What do you think?
It's a good question.
Probably like 6 months. I'm hoping 6 months, and it should be out by our summer.
Yeah. So end of the year, end of 2020.
Okay, end of 2020.
Yeah. Because it's a 2020 fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 2020 year is quite remarkable on so many levels.
Yeah, exactly. If there's ever a year that's needed this kind of message, it's now.
Yeah, exactly. You know, well, it was an honor to speak to you. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
And I've actually been following you for a while because I've been a fan of Dr. Morse's for a long time now, and you've been in a lot of his videos, and he talks about you all the time. So this is really cool as well. He's in the film too, by the way.
Oh yeah, I know. I knew that.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to him.
Yeah.
I knew that. So it's going to be really exciting to see, and I know that he's really excited as well.
Yeah. Well, so hopefully we get to meet you one day and come to Norway.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. We need to meet in Norway in August one year when all the wild berries are everywhere, and
nice.
we can just go off grids and sit down like a bear and just eat blueberries.
Yeah. Done.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's what we're doing. We have a date. We have a plan.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we have a deal.
Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to let you go. And again, thank you so much for being here. And for you who's been watching, I hope this was valuable. My intent on our three intent has been to inspire you to do better and to go looking into fasting. So until next time.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, LD.
Love and peace. Bye.
Yeah,
You too. See you later.